Welcome to the Private Practice Startup, where we inspire you from startup to mastery. We chat with entrepreneurs, experts in the mental health and business arenas, and successful private practitioners to give you the tools needed to make your dream practice a reality. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, and so much more. Here are your hosts, Dr. Kate Campbell and Katie Lemieux.
Hey there, Startup Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the Private Practice Startup Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Katie Lemieux, and here hanging out with me is my sidekick co-host, business partner, Dr. Kate Campbell. We are stoked you guys are here today, and I think I say stoked because it's been a long time since we've recorded on a Friday afternoon, and I don't know, I just guess I'm feeling the weekend of Friday, so I'm really excited about that. We have an awesome guest with us today, Jane Carter, and this is actually take 4, not even take 2. This is take 4. Welcome to the
another level.
Tech challenges of the online world. Jane will be talking to us today about take the brakes off your private practice, the top 3 fears holding you back. I can't wait to dive into that topic. And if you know Jane, she is a hoot, funny, exciting. So we're going to have a good time, and you guys will too. But we hope that you were with us last week for awesome Emily Clark, who is one of Laura Long's badassers. I think that's what she calls them in her tribe. And Emily actually talked to us about being authentically you in your practice and just allowing that to come out and shine. If this is the first time you are hearing my voice, I just want to say welcome to Startup Nation. You are now part of our Startup Nation superhero family, and we have a special gift for you. If you're a therapist, which you probably are, you definitely need paperwork. We all need paperwork. So we want to actually gift you one of our paperwork, our attorney-approved private practice HIPAA form. So you can go to privatepracticestartup.com, head over to the show notes page, and just go ahead and download that HIPAA form for free. Before we jump into today's topic, we just want to take a quick break for our sponsor.
Hey everybody, it's Dr. Kate here, and I just wanted to give a quick Startup Nation superhero shout out. This is from Sophie McIntay. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Thank you, Kate and Katie, for an amazing resource with this podcast. I have just recently relocated, and I'm starting my new therapy practice from scratch. Your podcast has given me the opportunity to re-envision my dream practice. Awesome. Congrats to you, Sophie. We're so excited for you. And now let's take a quick break for our sponsor for today's episode, which is Therapy Notes. When it comes to keeping your practice organized, you want to have software that's not only simple, but the best. And that's why we recommend Therapy Notes. Their platform lets you manage notes, claims, scheduling, and more. Plus, they offer an amazing unlimited phone and email support. So when you have a question, they are there to help. To get started with the practice management software trusted by over 60,000 professionals, go to therapynotes.com and start your free trial today. If you enter the promo code PPS, as in Private Practice Startup, they will give you not only 1, but 2 months for free. And if you really want to deep dive and listen more about their platform, you can also listen to episode 54, where we interviewed Brad Pliner. So check it out. Without further ado, let's dive in. What's up, Jane?
Hey, I'm so excited. 4th time is the charm, I guess.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm thrilled to be here with y'all. Thank you so much for having me.
We are happy to have you. And before we do dive in, you guys probably want to know, if you don't know Jane Carter yet. So Jane is a counselor and coach who helps therapists and other solopreneurs have fun, freedom, and money in their businesses. Jane lives in Asheville, North Carolina, and unfortunately we missed her at our pop-up networking, but she's here with us today. And before we actually hit record, we were just talking about Jane as a woman after my own heart. Not only is she a coffee connoisseur, but also a craft beer snob. So I just love it. So welcome.
Thank you. Yay. And I can't wait for y'all to come back up to Asheville so we can have one of those craft beers.
I know, totally. It was so crazy that the one weekend that we're coming, you happened to be out of town, but you were so helpful in sending us all of the information about Asheville and great spots and ideas. And we had our event, the pop-up networking event at the Catawba Brewery, which was from your idea. So thank you so much for being our tour guide from a distance. That was awesome.
Oh, you're welcome. I love showing off my town. It's a really special place. So I'm so glad y'all had so much fun, and I heard great things about it. So yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff.
Pleasure.
Yeah. So share with us, like, how did you dive into the fear stuff for clinicians? And I think it's such an important topic.
Oh man. The The short answer is lots of imperfect action and doing things scared. I mean, we all become experts on the thing we struggle with the most. And I've had to work through so much fear on my own. And then in going through that, realize how many other people work through it as well. So yeah, it's sort of become an expertise area, I guess you'd say.
Awesome. What's one of the things that you've done most afraid in private practice?
Oh, wow. When I was starting, I mean, just the leap into private practice itself, I think, I kind of went from one extreme where I took so long just to leap and go into private practice. I was just planning and downloading free webinars and ebooks and, all the things, and not taking the actual step till I finally got some coaching myself, which helped me to do that and to start the practice and to start charging money for it. And then I went to the opposite extreme where I decided to go big and start this huge online program and go, skip right to the scaling level, and totally failed and realized, oh, wait a second, I like to do one-on-one work with coaching. And so now I kind of feel like Goldilocks. I was playing too small and then I played too big, and now it's kind of just right.
Such a great analogy.
I mean, but it's all through my failures was how I learned to land where I am, and I feel like people are so afraid of taking those leaps and putting themselves out there, but that's where the good stuff is, I wouldn't give it up for, all the lessons that I learned. I wouldn't give it up for the world.
Right. And I feel like that's where we get compressed, right? And we grow, and then we just pop out somewhere else, and it's the new creative us.
Yes.
Share with us some of the top fears that you see. I'm sure any business owner overall, but I know we're talking about clinicians that you see they face.
Yeah. Well, so these are going to maybe sound general, but they're very real. One of them y'all have covered a lot, and I really appreciate. So it's that fear of failure. And it can show up. I love that you've had episodes about imposter syndrome and perfectionism, because that's just a sneaky way that fear of failure shows up. And I would even reframe it as the fear of the shame of failure, because we have this fear that, okay, I'm going to try this thing, and if it fails, on our kind of primal caveman brain level, it feels like I'm going to get kicked out of the tribe. Or I'm going to have this confirmation that, oh my gosh, what if I really suck and I'm a loser and I have to find out by failing, And so fear of failure is really powerful. The other fear that I see a lot of is the fear of being seen. And this is where you have to put yourself out there to go into private practice, to market yourself. And fear of being seen, it can even be being seen in a good way. I remember when Brene Brown was starting to get big and well known, and one of my colleagues was like, well, she just has a marketing machine going. And I was like, well, yeah, and she's helping a lot of people. That's great, but sometimes we can face judgment or the fear of judgment just by being seen as marketers. Yeah.
Sometimes,
go ahead.
Yeah, sometimes I know, and this is like one of the things that I've been very aware of, especially for this year, is that, you want to be in alignment with who you are, like behind the scenes, and then who you are outside. And I think overall I am, but one of my biggest fears, like I don't like to offend people. Like I don't want to hurt people's feelings and things like that. That's like a very big thing for me. And so it prevents me from saying things or doing things and things like that. Although, being silly and stuff like that, that is my authentic self. I do that behind the scenes. I definitely curse a lot more behind the scenes than I do more in the
don't we all?
Yeah. Right. But that's something for me that I struggle with, so that fear of offending others. And especially, when you are seen as, whether it's a prominent person in the therapy world or in your community or in the online space, trying to maneuver all that.
I like how
Go ahead.
Sorry. I like how you talk about the fear of being seen as one of the major fears, because it's so true. As therapists, Katie and I like to talk about how therapists make great marketers because they've got a lot of the skills to do so. But oftentimes therapists are so uncomfortable being in that role of marketing themselves or their services, or selling themselves or their services. Is just something that being seen in that way feels super uncomfortable for them. And that is a fear that can hold a lot of people back. It's something that's essential as a business owner in private practice. That's a vital skill to be able to hone and craft and get more comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And not only that, like the boundary stuff always comes into play, right? Like with the therapeutic boundaries and things like that. So how do you, Jane, help people navigate that area?
The fear of being seen, or the
all of it. all of it about
it.
the fear of being seen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have, it's so funny. I told y'all I had notes. I have my 3 ways to deal with the fears. A lot of it is that doing it scared and the imperfect action, right? So the more you're being seen, for instance, you actually are going to encounter people who don't like you, or who you trigger them for whatever reason. And I'm not saying everyone's going to dislike you, but there might be those people out there. You're putting yourself kind of up where people can see you and respond to you. And so even just the practice of developing thicker skin by taking courageous action and realizing, the first time I got criticism, it didn't destroy me. It was fine. Before I respond to that, can I talk about the third fear? And then I have sort of a framework for addressing all of these different fears that come up. The third fear that I think is important to name, and this is part of, taking those risks of failure and taking those risks of being seen, is just the underlying fear of change. Because even good changes, whether it's a good change or a bad change, it tends to have a grief process, and it tends to be out of our comfort zones. And so we can have a lot of resistance to any sort of change. So even for me to say, all right, let's tackle these fears, I want people to be aware that there's going to probably be some resistance that comes up. And not just because they're afraid that, someone's going to criticize them, but because even if everything goes smoothly, even if we get everything we want, we get a awesome practice that's full of cash pay clients, it's going to feel really strange, and it's going to feel kind of scary. And I love marketing guru Seth Godin, and he talks about how in our lizard brain, any change feels like death. Wah, wah.
I feel like I'm thinking to everything that's going on with me this week because I have just moved into our new expanded group practice, which I built from the ground up. And I knew roundabouts how much it was going to cost for the build out and that sort of a thing. I just got my bill yesterday. And since then, I've been running with a state of anxiety, oh man, wow, this is real. This is legit. This is happening. Thank goodness I had prepared for that. But there's just, along with this change and the growing practice, and there's just so much little fears, and that little critic voice keeps popping up in my head. So most of the time I have a good handle on it, but this week with all of the changes and everything going on, it is right back front and center. I think we may need to do that EMDR session after this.
Well, yeah. And it's, years from now, you're going to look back on this moment and be like, oh, that was so exciting. And I'm so proud of myself that I expanded and I did this new thing. In the moment, it's terrifying, and it's just uncomfortable.
It is. There's a lot of risk, and it's a lot of changes all at once. It's definitely uncomfortable. I know it's the right decision, and I know the feelings will fade and I'll get there. But for now, it's whoa, holy overwhelm. Yeah. Just to be fully transparent of where I'm at, because what you're talking about is really speaking to me as well.
Yeah. And I really appreciate your transparency. And I kind of want to insert this little kind of existential moment and just say, just stop and look around and just go, oh, isn't this awesome? And just have fun with it. Even if you can only have fun for about 10 seconds, because again, you're going to miss this moment someday. You're going to be like, oh, wasn't that cool? You know, look how cute I was. I was so scared to start, you know, to go bigger. But this can also be fun. Yeah. I was re-listening to the conversation between Brene Brown and Liz Gilbert on Liz Gilbert's podcast. And Brene was saying, you know, we talk about leap and the net will appear. And she's like, the net doesn't always appear, but can you go wee as you fall, as you fly through the air? And that part's really important too. And that can kind of shift some of the fear, is focus on the fun of it.
It's interesting you say that, because that was a big thing as I launched myself in a private practice, and I wrote a blog on it. And yeah, the net might not appear, but we eventually hit the ground anyway, right? And then we can start from there.
Right.
You know, and assess and look and figure it out.
And sometimes it is a big cliff, and sometimes the net, you know, is way down, or we have to weave it as we're going, you know, falling down the side. Sometimes we leap and it turns out the cliff was about 3 feet deep. You know? I mean, I took years I was just talking about going into private practice, and one of my friends was like, Jane, you've been talking about this for 3 years now. When are you going to do it? And it was this little wake up call. And then once I did it, and I was so scared. I mean, I still remember the queasiness I had with my first private pay client. And, you know, and it ended up being a safer decision than staying in my old university job. The cliff was 3 feet deep, you know? So much of it is our mindset. It's amazing how much of it is just in our heads or in our, you know, our fear. So yeah, for sure. So y'all ready for some, ways to deal with fear?
Totally.
Give it to us. Yes.
Besides just having fun, I really want everyone to have fun with the process, even when it's terrifying. All right. So one thing is to kind of shift out of reactive mode and into alpha dog energy. So
tell us more.
Okay. So, and I use a lot of dog analogies. I've got my dog here with me, but, whenever we're starting something new, it's really, and we're scared, it's tempting to kind of just get into reaction mode, just react to the fear as it comes at us. And then in our reaction, we make bad decisions. You know, ooh, I'm scared to be seen. I'm not going to do this marketing. I'm not going to write this blog post. I'm not going to put myself out there. And then we don't get the clients. And then we go into this kind of, oh, I guess I must suck at this and I'm a failure, right? Where it was the reactivity that caused the problem. So if you can shift into this leader mode, this kind of Cesar Millan dog whisperer, I've got my calm, assertive energy. I am the leader of my practice. I affect my business. It's not coming at me. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I'm about to stand up and do an Amy Cuddy power pose right now.
Yes, exactly. That's a great example. Yes, I love it. That's a great example of a little shift into, hold on a second, I'm the leader here and I can handle this.
You know what's so funny, Jane? So I don't know. I just felt like intuitively I knew this. We had gone to Vegas in December for a real estate conference. And on the way there, it was like a little bit bumpy. But on the way back, like literally before we leave, the captain comes out. He gets on the intercom and he goes, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. It's going to be a bumpy ride. And I'm like, oh, shit. Because I don't really, I don't really love turbulence.
Right.
2 hours of turbulence.
Wow.
So and again, intuitively, I think it's like, you know, being a therapist for so long, I just said, well, if I tell my body to relax, it will relax my mind. Because usually what we do is we feel anxious and then our body tenses. Yep. So I was like a rag doll. I was like, and I fell asleep, slept right through the turbulence. And I had shared that with my friend because I had done that on the way or whatever. But he's like, oh my God, he's like, Katie, I did exactly what you told me to do. And like, I slept right through it too. I was like, fantastic.
Awesome.
So yeah, so that whole energy, the alpha dog energy, moving your body, I can totally see where that just tells your mind, like you're not as afraid as you think you are.
Yeah. And you took leadership of that situation. You kind of said, all right, I'm going to lead myself.
Right.
You know? Because I can't control the turbulence, but I am taking the lead and saying, here's how I'd like to be in this situation. Mm-hmm. And we have to do that over and over and over again as our fear comes up and go, oh, hey, fear, there you are. All right, I'm going to dance with you now, but I'm leading this dance.
Nice. Right? I love it.
So the next thing to remember is that, and this was, I think it was Dani Shapiro, she's a writer, who said this: courage is more important than confidence. And what that means is that we often kind of sit around waiting for the fear to go away or waiting for the confidence to show up before we take action. And the confidence is not going to show up. The fear is not going to go away. And as soon as we can accept that and go, okay, let me focus on courage. I'm going to take these little baby steps and, just want to pee my pants with fear every time I put myself out there and take a risk. And then I'm going to survive it. And then I'm going to, rinse and repeat. I'm going to take another baby step with courage. The confidence comes with repetition. It doesn't just show up. And it doesn't even show up with your little self-pep talk. It comes with, all right, I'm taking a baby step and I'm going to do it and I'm going to survive it. Or I'm going to fail and survive it.
And I'm going to pee my pants. I like that.
And I'm going to pee my pants. But you know what? I can change my pants. I can take a shower, put on some clean pants. It'll be fine.
I can dump the coffee on top and say I drunk coffee.
Right. Exactly. I'll have friends around me who can cover for me. So we can take that metaphor as far as you want. But yeah, it just, the first time I had a paying client, like I said, I was terrified and I'm always scared every time I raise my fee. It's normal to have that fear. And then when, the first and then second and third time someone says, okay, that's your fee. Great. I'm happy to pay it. You go, oh, okay, no big deal. And, now I don't think twice about it. So repetition of courageous action is what brings the confidence.
We often have this conversation about money and raising our fees and how to go about them. And should I tell my clients and all this stuff? And I remember there was a defining moment for me. One day I walk into Chipotle and I look up the board and I was like, oh, they changed their fees. And then I said to myself, I go, well, Chipotle didn't consult me if it was okay to change their fees, but I'm going to pay it anyway. So why would I have to talk to my clients about charging a higher fee, right? Of course, yes, there is that level of anxiety and the worry and the fear and I'm going to lose somebody and all of that totally comes up. But I remember I've raised my fees many times and I remember the conversations and preparing for the conversation and you tell one client, you rip off the Band-Aid, you're like, okay, I told one, now I have to tell everybody because I can't charge this one client the new rate. Now I got to do it. I'm in it. Crap.
Yeah, you've left off that cliff and now you're, and okay, so back to the Chipotle thing and back to the alpha energy thing. Chipotle had the alpha energy there. They took the lead. They said, this is what we charge now. They didn't hey guys, so we're thinking about raising the fees. How do you feel about that? Is that okay?
Exactly.
Is that all right?
So true.
It was just kind of, this is what it costs. Oh, okay. I still want this burrito, And so if you have that alpha energy, what's interesting is other people respond to it. And your clients want you to have leader energy because then they can relax.
Yes. Going back to the whole Cesar Millan. I love it.
I
got a little chills on that one.
I know. Well, when I'm the leader, my dog relaxes because he knows what to do. He knows what to expect. But if I'm kind of all over the place, then he starts chewing his hair out because he's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. It all comes down to dog training, really.
It's so funny you say that because when I was in licensure supervision many years ago, we constantly talked about the metaphor of dog training. We're talking about children and parents, but totally, exactly. If you as the leader aren't in control and manage your own fear, then what then does that give off?
Right, exactly. So the third thing that I always like to encourage people to do when it comes to fear, because the fear isn't going away, get support. We need other people. We absolutely need other people. I just heard this the other day and it kind of blew my mind. There was a study that these neuroscientists studied the brain and showed that when a climber is looking at a mountain, it looks 10 to 20% steeper. The brain perceives it as 10 to 20% steeper if they're standing there alone versus if they have another climber next to them who's going to climb with them.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Cool. That is.
Yeah. Our brains change when we have other people coming alongside us. That
totally reminds me of Sue Johnson's MRI experiment looking at couples. I don't know if you know that, but looking at couples, they did an MRI of the brain of a couple before therapy, right? And it was really talking about after couples work and they feel very connected, how even when we're going through something painful, that our partner or someone we trust and love can soothe us. And so it shows that the brain scan doesn't light up the way that it did initially. So that's interesting that research continues to expand across other things, but makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And, like I said, I didn't actually leave my job and start my private practice until I hired a coach and had someone kind of pulling for me and leading the way. And then after I kind of failed miserably with creating my big online site and had to kind of start over and get clear, I hired a coach again, and I had a tribe of support. And even, I went through this big failure, and it was right about the same time that Allison Pereira was getting started, and she had some big failures, and we would ugly cry together. And we kind of had this little tribe of two of, we're going to get through this together. And just having that support of other people makes an enormous difference. It really can be the thing that kind of gets us over that fear. Or, again, the fear doesn't really go away, but it's like you don't feel it as badly. It doesn't feel as scary. And so I really encourage people to, use the resources that y'all have. Y'all have a tribe with your Facebook group, and that's wonderful, and use coaching and form a little mastermind group in your community. But we need other people for sure if we're going to get through these scary moments, so we don't feel like, oh, I'm the only person who's terrified right now.
Yeah, so powerful. So true.
Yeah.
I can remember hearing you a while back. This is kind of like a sidebar on Allison's podcast with all the puns about niching with like, you got 99 problems, but a niche ain't one.
That's right.
I remember laughing so hysterically. And I'm like,
niche, please.
That was
so good.
Hysterical. Yes. I just had to put a little sidebar there because it was so funny. I was like, I got to meet this Jane Carter.
Oh my gosh. I'd left it out of my bio that I'm obsessed with puns, but it's ridiculous. In Asheville, next time you come, you have to come to, they have the homegrown pun battle, and it's homegrown, GROAN. Because everyone groans during all the awful puns. But
are you the reigning champion? Do you have a belt?
I let the fear get the best of me, and I have not gone up on stage.
Oh, you gotta do it.
Oh no! Okay, I have to try.
Wait, get on the podcast stage with like thousands and thousands of people listening.
Let's see. Bullet point 2: fear of being seen. I think I have some good advice for you, Jane. I want you to take your alpha dog energy and your Amy Cuddy power poses
and go have fun with it.
I'm gonna have to put some pressure on you. I'm gonna have to start a patient and be asking if you're going for the pun challenge.
Oh man! All right, y'all can be my support team.
Yeah, totally. Oh, you can run it by us. You can play. We'll do it. Let's do it.
And then when I pee my pants, y'all can be there with my clean pants. So
perfect.
I love it. That's awesome. So Jane, it's been super fun having you here today. And finally, I should say take 4, right?
I know.
What do you want Startup Nation to take away from your message today?
I want people to know that your practice is here to grow you. It's not just here to make you money and give you freedom and all of those wonderful things that we love about private practice. It is your practice is pulling for you. It wants good things for you. Fear wants to tell you that it's out to destroy you and humiliate you. But your practice is pulling for you, and it's your friend. And all of these little fears that you face, whether it's just writing the blog post you've been avoiding, or going on the podcast, or calling that person for the coffee date, or whatever that thing, or raising your feet, whatever that scary thing is that you want to do. When you face that fear, it's growing you, and it's really turning you into a more confident person as you work through all your shit that comes up, all that emotional mindset stuff that comes up. So yeah, it's here to grow you. So enjoy the process.
Love that. Yes.
Yeah. Is that your alpha dog pose, Kate?
Yes, my alpha dog pose. Yes. I've got my arms up and like my muscle stance. I'm like, yes, I can do this.
Awesome.
This is like the podcast that I needed for the day.
Oh, I'm so glad.
For the week, actually. Yes, this is epic.
Everything is so serendipitous. I love it. And you have a really like awesome giveaway perfect for your topic. So share your giveaway and how people get in touch with you, Jane.
Yeah. So I'm giving away a permission slip template. And what that is, in my coaching, I've realized that 90% of what I do is just give people permission for the thing that they're scared to do or that they want to do. And so you can print this out and cut it up into little slips. And anytime it's like, all right, I have permission to do this thing scared, or I have permission to hate the number crunching part. I have permission to be tired today. I have permission to leave my job and start my practice. You can write yourself a little permission slip, and it's amazing how powerful that is. And so if people want that, they can email me at jane@janecartercoaching.com. And let's say, how about in the subject line, put woof woof, because you're using your alpha dog energy. And I will send you a copy of the permission slip template.
Awesome.
I love
it. And people can find you at janecartercoaching.com. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. And I offer a free consultation. So if people want to give me a call, we can hop on the phone for 20 or 30 minutes and I can find out more about what you're working on.
Cool. So last question before we close out the show. What is your favorite craft beer?
Oh.
Or one of them?
Oh man, my favorite classic is the Highland Brewery Oatmeal Porter. It's so good.
It sounds good.
And it's perfect in the wintertime. It's just this like rich, warm, it's like having a meal, but it's a beer. Don't drink your dinner, folks. Kids eat too. But it's my favorite, and it's the oldest. It was the first craft brewery in Asheville, and now we've got like 1 per 10 people. So it's kind of a classic. So yeah, come have an oatmeal porter with me.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Sometime in the future, we will for sure.
I would love that.
So thank you everybody for joining us today as Jane broke down some fears for us: fear of failure, fear of being seen, fear of change, and really how to embody your alpha dog energy and really take that on. So we hope you guys join us next week. We are going to have Lisa Wozniak back for a second round talking about how LinkedIn can grow your private practice, which I am really excited to share this with you guys because I've been wanting to learn about this. So join us next week. And as always, you can check out our show notes page for the tips, resources, and Jane's awesome fun giveaway from today's show. And of course, we'd love when you show us some love, whether you send us an email, subscribe, rate, review. We always appreciate your love because it just keeps us inspiring. It inspires us to keep doing what we're doing. And if you found this podcast helpful, I'm sure one of your friends or colleagues did too. So why don't you share the love with them and send it their way. Again, Startup Nation, as always, thank you for allowing us to inspire you from startup to mastery, and have an awesome and amazing day.
See you next time.
Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.